What's going on, folks? Today I want to take you through some tools that I'm using on an everyday basis and weekly for my reselling business. And the whole point of this is to share with you what I'm doing, and maybe it can work for you too. This isn't to say you need to start doing this, but simply to give you some insight and some different ways of maybe thinking when doing your reselling business. Essentially, these come down to software, systems, and I guess ways of working, and there is plenty more of these. Today I'm just touching on three of the most regular things that I'm doing on a regular basis. The first one we're going to touch on is profit first, and why I think this is important and how it enables me to grow and scale my business smartly. Secondly, I'm going to touch on a sales and profit calculator, something I like to use just when I'm working out deals or working out if this item's going to be worth it for me. And thirdly is my reseller dashboard. If you've been around the channel for a while, you know I like all the numbers, all the dashboard, all the fancy bells and whistles. But the thing is, there's a purpose for this, right? And I want to take you through what that purpose is and give you a bit of an idea. And of course, if you stick around to the end, there might even be a way of how you can get access to that too. So let's dive into it. So number one is profit first. Now this is a book and this is a system and it's a process, and I want to be 100% transparent here. I am not following this to the dot. You need to go read the book and see if it works for you. You need to go read the book and see how it can apply for you. I am actually just taking a part from this book to explain in this episode of how it's working for me to enable that I've got the right cash flow and I guess the right financial factors in place to ensure that I can run my business smoothly. Now, I have been reselling for over a year now, and it's been crucial for me to ensure that I have cash flow into the business. If you've been doing it for a short time or a long time, you know that we outlay a lot of money, usually in advance, with the hope that we're going to make a profit, a week later or a day later or a month later or however long it may be. And that's why the profit first process works so well, because it basically sets you up to ensure that you are paying yourself on a regular basis, you're putting some money aside for tax, you're making sure you've got plenty of money there to manage your operating expenses, which is known as OPEX, and there's also some room to wriggle with some other things as well. So we're going to jump into this right now and we'll have a look at it, and I'll take you through some examples and whatnot, and hopefully it might change your perspective of how you can operate your business too. Alright, so profit first. As I was very, very clear about before, I am not following the process of the book to the dot. I've slightly adjusted this and doing this what works for me. However, I would strongly recommend you to go check out the book Profit First and see how it works for you. And this idea right here will help you give a better understanding of how to enable cash flow into your business, essentially for reselling in this case. And that's why I want to share it. This is not advice. This is essentially what I'm doing and how it might benefit you. So you've got the book, you've gone through it, la-di-da-di-da, let's dive into it. So the whole purpose of this is essentially to help fix that problem where we tend to outlay so much money in advance with the hope to get money back when reselling, right? But the problem is we don't always get the money back as quick as we expect. Therefore, we run out of money, or we end up going into our savings, or we end up putting more money into the business. And that money essentially is coming from, your savings. It's coming from your personal dollars, unless you already had a large capital amount invested into the business from day one. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because the whole purpose of this is by using a range of different accounts and a process to basically split up the money that comes into the business and only grow based off that. This will enable you to grow slow but grow smart. Splitting of accounts. Essentially, there are 5 accounts. Income, that's where your money goes. OPEX, that's called operating expenses. Anything that is an expense to the business. So postage, anything from marketing supplies, anything from actually going out and sourcing goods. So the cost of goods, that's all expenses. There's so many different expenses. And it'll be different for everyone. It might be rent as well. The third one is profit. Profit is essentially what you're going to pay yourself basically as a bit of icing on top on a quarterly basis, or when you hit a certain amount of money. We've got to celebrate the wins. And then owner's pay is essentially what you're paying yourself on a regular basis. I do it weekly. Some people might do it monthly. I like to have it weekly so I have enough cash to continue to grow the business on a weekly basis. Finally is tax. We've got to pay the tax man. We've got to keep him happy, and that's the purpose of it. You can see here on the side, there is some percentages right here. Well, essentially, these percentages is the allocation that is going to be broken down into the accounts from the money that you've been paid. Let me explain. Example, let's say you're starting your business and you're starting with $1,000. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to split that up into OPEX, into profit, into owner's pay, and tax. You're going to put $400 into the OPEX, and that's what you're going to spend for the next week or the next period until you get paid again, basically to operate the business. Profit is going to be there for when maybe you hit $1,000, you'll pay yourself. Or maybe when you hit a quarterly period, that's when you'll pay yourself. It's like a dividend or a bonus. Owner's pay, that's basically your pay for the week. And then tax is you're putting that money aside in advance, for a quarterly tax payment or maybe a yearly tax payment down the line. A lot of the time we get to the end of the year and not realize we have to pay tax on something, and they're like, okay, that's $2,000. Where are you going to pull it from? This is to basically save up for that time and period. All right, so you've put $1,000 in, it's been split out. But let me quickly go through this and actually say, well, let's say you're actually on a regular basis having money coming in through the business. And let's say your first week of reselling or last week of reselling was $600. All right, cool. You've done $600. It's broken it up. So how does that work in your bank accounts and all that jazz? Well, week one, you've just been paid $600. So $240 is going to go into OPEX, $30 into profit, $240 into your owner's pay, and then you're going to have tax being $90. But then what you need to do is, before you progress into the next week, is what did you spend for the week? How much remains? Basically, where is your account at the end of the week, right? So you might have spent in OPEX. Maybe you actually spent $55. Maybe, right? And in profit, owner's pay, and tax, that should not have changed. Unless you withdrew the money, nothing should have changed. In this case, let's assume you haven't withdrawn anything. You're paying yourself on a monthly basis. So at the end of week one, you basically have $185 left in your OPEX. Okay? Makes sense, right? So now essentially when you move into week two, essentially where you're starting at is where you left off in the end of week one, which was $185, $30, $240, and $90, right? Into those different streams, essentially what we're calling splitting of account. So week two, essentially now, let's say you've been paid $1,000. You've done a good week on eBay, you get $1,000 into your account. Boom. All of a sudden, you're going to be putting, once again, you're putting a percentage into your OPEX. You're putting a percentage into your profit. You're putting a percentage into your owner's pay. You're putting a percentage into your tax. Plus, now you can see how much you've got previously from the last week. So because we had 185 last week, from the percentage breakdown, we've now basically gone up another $400, and vice versa for profit, owner's pay, and tax. Now, as you progress into week two, how much did you spend? What did you spend? Let's say you spent all 500 of it. That means you're going to have $85 left. Did you spend anything in profit? No, because you've kept your profit. You didn't pay yourself until you hit $1,000 or on a quarterly basis. Owner's pay. Maybe you decided to pay yourself this week. That's okay. So let's say you've paid yourself $600. Okay, you got $40 left in your owner's pay account. I would just pay out the whole amount if you're doing it on a weekly basis, but I do it on a monthly basis. Tax you shouldn't have touched, so everything should be zero for tax. And there you go. That's where you are at week two. Now, in terms of this, you've got cash flow going into your pocket, you've got cash flow going into your business, you've got cash flow going in for a bonus, and you've got cash flow going into your tax for when it comes that time. It's that simple, guys. It really is. Area number two is my sales and profit calculator or breakdown. Essentially, I use this more so for deals when I'm going to pick up a big deal, or whether it's a deceased estate or essentially a bulk deal. But I do use this for individual items as well, and you can tailor it for whatever you need. And there are alternatives for this too. We're going to jump in and I'm going to take you through what I'm using and how it works. For this one, I've made it myself. It works for me, and I like to do it from home, or I can just quickly log onto my phone and do it myself. But this one, it also gets you familiar with the numbers, and numbers are everything when it comes to reselling, because you need to know how much is it going to cost you, what are the fees going to be, how much is it going to cost to ship it, and then what's your likely profit. As you get into this longer, you'll start to realize what things are worth and how much you can actually make from it. Let's dive in. So let's say you're looking at a bulk deal, and the bulk deal is going to be $2,000, right? So we're going to put $2,000 in here, $2,000. Now, let's say, what's the quantity of items? How many items are you getting? Let's say you get 400 items. Works out the average cost of good is going to be about $5 per item, right? As you can see here on screen. $5 per item, not too bad, not too bad. Now, what is the sale price, potential sale price for each thing? Let's say it's going to be around $37 is what you're likely to get. Now, if you sell it all, that's around $14,800. But you've got to take into account of fees. For my fees, it's about 15%. That's with promotions as well. And then what about postage? Are you paying postage? Let's say this was a huge DVD or video game haul. Let's say video games. So postage paid on these is probably going to be around $3.30 if you're doing untracked. So we're going to do per item $3.30. Boom, it's going to be at $1,320 essentially in postage, as you can see there on screen. But profit, we're at $9,260. So it works like a charm. This also works if it's something really, really small as well. Let's say that there's something in the shops that you find for $5, right? You know there's only one item of it because you've seen it in front of you. So the average cost of good is once again $5. You're going to sell it at $40. There's only one of them. Fees is about $6. Postage paid, let's say it's actually going to be about $9.30. You're going to come out with $19.70 profit. Just go to do this 100 times and you're laughing. And tool number 3 is my reseller dashboard, which I've customized myself, made from bottom up. And essentially it tracks everything to do with my reselling business. Everything from individual items and the profit and the cost of goods, the postage and all that jazz per item. But then also it gives me additional information or metrics that is helping me understand how am I tracking over time, how am I tracking on a weekly basis, where in the business or what numbers are bleeding me dry, meaning where am I losing money, what profits am I making, what categories am I focusing on, or what categories are actually making me the most money. There's so much here, and I don't want to make it overwhelming. I just want to share with you why I use it and some of the benefits. And of course, if this is something that you're potentially interested in, stick around to the end because I do have a sign-up sheet for my public release. So let's dive into it. This next one is my reseller dashboard. Now you can see a lot on screen here. I hope it doesn't overwhelm you too much, but I want to take you through what my intent is here, right? And the whole purpose of this is basically to give me a quick snapshot of where I'm at with my business at any point in time. And there's a lot going on here. Of course, if you've got questions, put them down in the comments below. But the whole purpose I want to show you this is I'm actually going to be doing a public release of this, obviously for a price, but it will give you the option to be able to do this for yourself. It's not going to be exactly the same, but there will be a lot of it which is the same. Now, essentially here, this tells me everything I need to know about my business. Now, if you're new in reselling, this will be a little overwhelming, but let me take you through it. So essentially here, I've got some milestones. I've set a milestone basically all the way up to $300,000. That's probably going to be a long way away yet. But at the moment, because my total revenue at this point in time that I can see right here is $68,937 since starting, I'm actually at 92% to my next milestone, which is $75,000. In terms of total profits, I'm at $41,000, and that gives me my margin of 59%. And you're probably thinking, hang on, Chris, hang on. Where is all this coming from? Where is all this data coming from? Well, that's coming out of my actual sales tracker. Now, I've actually done a video on this before. This is a slightly bit adjusted since then, but this tracks, at the moment, it's tracking about 4,000 items or more. And this has all my details, my items, the type of item, so the category, where I sourced it from, how much I've listed it for, the date listed, the date sold, the cycle time of it selling, is it posted, is it listed, what's its current status. I've got the purchase price of it. I've got the fees that are coming through for it. I've got the sold amount that I sold it for. I've got the profit and the margin, and then item IDs, which obviously apply to different things that I'm doing, which gives me my weekly report or monthly report and all that jazz. It's a lot of information, but hear me out. So what all this information enables me to do is at any point in time, I can see what is my average sale price, $30.89. That's whole of life since I started. Now I've sold over 1,000 items, which means that's going to tell me that, on average, I'm going to get $30 for my item based on the stuff that I'm sourcing. I've got an average profit number here. I've got an average postage cost at my cost. My average expenditure for postage is $3.19. My average cost of good is $4. That's what I'm putting out per item to then get this money in return. As we zoom in a little further, and you probably can't see too detailed on screen, but essentially I've got these little graphs that tell me how I've been progressing over time. And this is since I started back in January 11th, 2021. As you can see, what my average daily sales and revenue or / profits has been. They've continued to increase as I've continued to put more work in. A good example of this, and I'll zoom down into a more detailed view of this, is my listed, which is basically a zoomed in of this one right here. This tells us that when I first started, I wasn't really consistent in listing. I wasn't really doing much listings. I was probably averaging maybe 30 a week, but only 1 this day, 5 that day, 10 another day, etc., etc. But then when I actually started to get into a good groove, as you can see, which came July, my sales doubled. The red line being sales. All of a sudden, when I put that consistency in, this is what I started to get. I've had quite a few interesting things happening at this point in time, just recently. But as you can see, it's all pointing in the right direction. So that's what it tells me with the data that I pull. The other thing is I've got, how I've been going for my weekly listings. This is a weekly view that you can see on screen right here of how I'm doing on a weekly basis. I've then got a view here that tells me some of the little numbers that I'm tracking personally and things like that. But this one here gives me my breakdown per each month. How am I tracking each month? How is this happening? Now, all of this is obviously operating from a back end, which is from all the data that I just went through before. And there's a whole bunch of other information that comes behind this as well, which is all this detail right here. This tracks everything. Kid you not, it's got revenue, cost of goods, fees, postage, average daily profit, the week, the margin, the month, average postage cost for that day. It's got everything. Not everything, it's got a lot of stuff, right? And my whole point here is that I wanted to share it with you because this is something that I'm actually working on and actually making it available for individuals like you. Individuals, for people that maybe they've been doing it for a long time, or people that are getting started. It's not here to overwhelm and show that you need this. It just shows you what you can have and what the possibilities are. And there's some additional reporting functions on this one that also tells me what are my top categories on a weekly basis, or what's been selling and what hasn't been. So for instance, if I jump over to my last week, I can tell you essentially that last week, I had 35 sales, margin was 61%, cost of goods was $161, sold $990 and profit was $605. Top items, I did 14 DVDs. I did 6 books. What was the profit? What was the revenue? What was the best item? I can see all the best items down here. It tells me all this information. This is a very rough version of it. There's a very clean version of this as well. But the whole point is it tells you the information that you might want on a regular basis, whether it's weekly or monthly, or maybe you just want to quickly snapshot. Not everyone is numbers driven, but because I'm running this as a business, as my main source of income, I need to be on top of this and I need to understand, is it going to be working? What is working and what isn't working? So this is just a quick little snapshot of what I'm using on a daily basis. I use this every single day, and it's probably been the best thing that has enabled me to grow and scale my business, obviously aside from sourcing good items too. And there's been so much knowledge and expertise I've been able to gain from friends and colleagues in this business or community. So that is the reseller dashboard. If you've got any questions about it, drop a comment below. Otherwise, if it's something that you're curious about, something that maybe you will want to actually dabble in and get your hands on, there is a sign up sheet. You can sign up and pre-register for your interest of this, as I will be releasing one coming up soon. Jump in early. If you're some of the early ones, I might even give you a discount when it does release. I'll probably be getting some testing done by some people too. Maybe you'll get the opportunity to do that too. No promises. This is essentially just a chance for you to sign up. Of course, if you're watching this video a lot later and it's already at release, it will be in the description below and you can already go for it and make a purchase. That's the reseller dashboard. So that's it, team. That is my 3 tools that I'm using on an everyday basis or weekly basis. And look, there is a need and time for these different things. When you're starting out, I would strongly recommend, researching profit first, getting your hands on a copy of the book and seeing if it can work for you. Starting from zero and having that, containment and boundary to manage your finances in your business, to ensure that you are just using your business finances. It's going to help you grow slow but grow strong. And I would highly recommend that. Of course, with that, I would also encourage you to go check out an accountant and make sure you're doing all the right things when it comes to reselling, because if you are having the intent to sell and make money from this business, it needs to be regulated in compliance to the ATO. That's here in Australia. In terms of profit and sales calculator, I think there's so many different ways we can do this and everyone manages their business differently. But this little one has been really important for me, especially for doing those bulk deals. And it just helps you understand, how much money you're potentially able to get back, but where you're going to get hit the most in terms of costs. But it's even more important, as the more you do this, the more you learn the numbers and you can actually do it on the fly when you're out there in the shops. And then number 3 was that reseller dashboard. And as I mentioned, if you do want to sign up and express your interest for actually getting your hands on this, I will be offering a live public version of this. Of course, there will be a fee for this, but you can sign up, you can register, put your expression of interest, you go into the mailing list, and I'll be sharing with you as I start to release more updates for it and details. You'll be the first to know. So if that's something you're interested in, go jump over. If you want to see these things in action, I actually talk about these a bit more in my live streams as well. You can jump over there. I usually do them on a couple of times a month on Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. usually. And you can find out more there. Otherwise, if you've got any questions for anything that I've discussed today, jump down below into the comments and leave a comment. More than happy to answer any comments and continue the conversation. Really do appreciate being here, and you have a wonderful day. Cheers.